morning. Happy Thursday. We are so glad that you are here with Ask DeAnna Anything. This is a place where you can ask any wellness question that may be burning in your mind. And DeAnna Batdorf, who has been working with Ayurveda and the lymphatic system and all the systems of the body for 30 plus years, can answer your question and give you lots of really good remedies to try. How are you doing today, DeAnna?
I'm really good. Yeah, I feel like there's lots of beautiful spring. I mean, like, whoa, my yard is just popping flowers everywhere. And it's also hopefully popping out practitioners from the students who are in the clinical program. And I can't wait to see. I'm just in the thick of my planning and launching and getting all the details for everybody, for also students and retreating, a learning retreat. Ayurveda meets Portugal. So I can't wait to see how we can support the people of Portugal. And there's some interesting little clinics we'll be doing. So yeah, I feel like everything is springing forward and popping, and just like really everybody go with the change. If you haven't heard Stargazer Lee's Keeper of Time little podcasts, not even little, they're brilliant. They're nice and short and sweet is what I mean. They're short and sweet, but very succinct and articulated. And I highly suggest you follow her around. And we are, very much soul sisters. So, we often talk of the same things in very different ways, like totally different ways, but we're very weaving in the same seeing where things are and where things are going and how to just be with it. So I'm feeling like I want to give a shout out to my dear friend Lee, Stargazer Lee, and you can find her by that name. And she makes brilliant essences, and she does amazing astrology, and she also does ancestry. And ancestry is really big in kind of learning to get to know yourself in a different way. And she really helps me with that. And I'll be doing a few pieces this month on like my last name, and our names are ancestry, and we're linked in ways we don't even know. Like my mom is Shirley Ann, and she named her first daughter her favorite name, but named her Suzanne. And never thought Anne, like she wasn't trying to create Anne. She just liked the name Suzanne. And then she named me DeAnna. And it's just really interesting looking at those things, it's like, whoa. And Scott, my partner, like literally when we were like 40, so like 10 plus years ago, we were sitting down and Scott gave my mom a compliment of like, oh, I really like the way you named your children. They're all independent, but they're of Anne. And she was just like, all three of us were like, what are you talking about? We had never figured it out. And I just find that really interesting. Like we had never put it together as the three very pretty smart people. And you think of that with ancestry, the serendipity, and some of the things that just end up happening that you don't know are happening because they're so innate and in alignment to blood and bloodlines. And so I have that with my mother's side, and I have my last name Batdorf, from my father. So just something about those things. And Lee has really helped me to see how those are important. Just really powerful. So that's what I'm springing forward. I'm sharing someone who really helps me. And I hope I'm helping all of you, but I have people helping me too. And you got to remember that, there's always that need, and I love that. So, I also want to just say before we jump into some questions, and I know we need to get to it, but I am inspired today. So hope everyone's enjoying it. And I just want to say that pooping is important. And that's my theme for the month. So follow me along, because there's a whole bunch of symptom lists and different things coming up. I really got into my content and I'm excited, but I just really am like spring forward. The only way we really do that and have the energy to do that is by dumping winter, which was low and cold. We have to warm up, we have to invigorate. We're in innate cleansing time, but it doesn't mean you have to extreme cleanse, throw yourself into a detox. You can really think about your intestines. If you spent the next 3 months just thinking about clearing your intestines a little bit more every day, you don't need to be all going too loose stool. You don't need to move it too quick, but maybe just like 1 or 2 more bowel movements in a day. And we normally have 2. So we have 2 bowel movements. And that first one is within an hour, and it shouldn't be with caffeine. And usually walking is the best way to really make it happen, with some warm water, warm tea. And then we also, after 2 to 3 hours after lunch, before dinner, we have another bowel movement. And yeah, check out the e-blast we just sent out too, because that's really brilliant, and it'll give you some more details. So you should check that out. Or sign up if you're not in our newsletter, because they're really, informative little details. And that's how we get upward energy, is by having downward motion and making sure that we are just really releasing our day, our work, our stress. It's personal time. And so you're also kind of coming back to yourself as a clean, with clean plumbing. And that's really such a big part of it. So, wow, you may be amazed, anyone out there who lives with pain or has a lot of anxiety. I don't know who would say, put their hand down to stress, but whatever. Stress. And anyone who has a trauma that you feel is locked in your core, which is the psoas muscle. And when that psoas muscle is tight and bound up in the middle, all your intestines go inhale, exhale with your lungs. So your lungs are inhaling, exhaling, your heart is pumping, and your intestines, peristalsis, is squeezing, expanding, contracting. And when we're in holding patterns, holding our breath, holding the psoas muscle, holding it all together, I'm not saying it's easy to just give all that up or something. I've got it too. But I do have to say, when I have those 2 bowel movements in a day, and when I sometimes up it to 3 or 4, but I don't dehydrate myself, or I think about, an enema, or I think about a colonic, which would be smart, great way to get to know yourself and really put yourself in somebody else's, hands, and face that fear of like sharing an intimate part of yourself. It's discreet. It's very respectful, very discreet. People who do colonics are so respectful, so discreet. They know what their work is. Imagine they chose that work. You know what I mean? They chose it. I'm like, wow, someone chose to do colonics. Okay. They want to make you feel safe. So it's a great place to kind of put it on the line and be like, I need a practitioner to help me feel safe with this space. And we do. We have things about public bathrooms and all kinds of situations, or being told we smelled as a kid from your brother or your sister, or even your parents. All kinds of things change the way we go. Oh, I'm bad, or I don't know what's safe. And so we have to be willing to release. And pooping is important because it's the main releasing we do every single day, other than our breath. So, and they work together. So I just really wanted to, put that forward and see if maybe someone live comes up with a good pooping question too. But I know, Andrea, you have questions for me.
Yeah, and we do actually have some great questions that are coming in the chat that we'll be able to add in the mix. We've got Noah here, and we've got Heather, who have both said hi, and they've got questions. So we're really glad
hello,
Noah and Heather. So let me get to questions first that we have received during the week. The first one comes from Olga, and Olga says, "Hi, DeAnna. I'm having some concerns about my adrenals. Over the last year or so, I've noticed a sweet taste in my mouth. It comes and goes on its own. It occurs seemingly out of nowhere and nothing, not food or water or brushing my teeth, and nothing will mask it. Sometimes it happens after meals and sometimes in between. I read that it could be related to adrenals. I already do some things to take care of my blood sugar and adrenals, like drinking salt water first thing, eating plenty of high quality animal protein and fat frequently throughout the day, and going on walks. Should I be concerned about this sweet taste? Is my body trying to tell me something?
Okay. That's a wonderful question. I have a few different ideas with this one, right? Because there's never just one answer, especially without a pulse and a person in front of me. But I've got some great advice and some directions to look. First thing, I'm just going to say there's 6 taste rasas. They're called the rasas, which is the same name as the lymphatic system, rasa, the river of life. And we also have rasas, the essence of flavors and the excitement of taste and smell. And we have astringent, sour, pungent, bitter, sweet, and salty. And these are things that actually have different components. And it's like a whole map you can look up online, won't be hard to find. You can find the map of where sweet is. So the first thing would be, really kind of assessing sometimes. This is just a further assessment. If you were in front of me or if I saw your tongue, I'd be like, where are you tasting the sweet? And I would make sure you ruled out that you're not tasting it from your gums or a tooth or your salivary glands. So these are just some areas that are upper channel. So you may have some lymph that needs to move down into where the river meets the bloodstream and this drain right here, subclavian drain below the clavicle. You might need to get some of your lymph really moving up in your neck. And we have a lymph node, the whole line of our jaw, mandible, the chin, and behind our ears. So many, and those might be getting clogged. And if you have something trapped in there, sometimes bacteria, like a little bit of bacteria in the salivary gland or the upper channels, or a little bit of something that like got fought in the lymph as your immune system, but it's kind of trapped in some of those lymph nodes, or a cavity, or a little pocket that's filling up with fluid, in your dental, in your gums. And we have a lymph node between every tooth in our mouth. So there's tons of lymph in the mouth, and those are the things that fill up with fluid. So I would rule this in or out to start, and just see if it isn't like a backup of the river and it just can't drain, and then it's causing, some issues. So yeah, so think dental and how much can that play out? And then think lymph, because that's, if anything is kind of stuck in your mouth, it's got to get drained down to the chest to shift, kind of regardless of what's going on. And then there's the adrenal question. Now, I'm going to be really honest. I don't think sweet taste in the mouth when I think adrenals. I do think that if we're talking about adrenals that are more related to Hashimoto's, which most people just think of as low thyroid. So if I was looking at somebody with Hashimoto's where the adrenals are so fatigued that they're literally are outsourcing metabolic function from the thyroid. So they're leaching those hormones because they're out of resources. They're out of not only adrenaline helping you when you need it, but now the cortisol that came to its rescue. And then those get super imbalanced. And cortisol does have it is even a milky-like texture. It is considered super nourishing and cooling. So maybe there's an excess cortisol that's making some kind of flavor in the mouth. I can kind of see that, but I don't know that as to be a symptom myself. Maybe there's more I can learn too. But when I think of the fact that it might be leaching from the thyroid and lowering the thyroid, when thyroid goes low, it changes the metabolic rate. It pushes more. Now the thyroid needs the pancreas's help. So now the adrenals called on the thyroid. Now who's the thyroid going to call on? it's going to call on the pancreas, and then that's the blood sugar relation. Now, the lymph still needs to move because you want your thyroid here to be able to breathe. Literally, you want it to be able to breathe. So, and I always say it's really important to make sure it's moving back and forth. It's not clicking. It's not, thicker on one side. And then you want to get in there with the gua sha and break it down. And you're not going to hurt yourself. You're going to soften everything up. So that's where I would start as my remedies is gua sha. And then the other thing is the steam tablets. I make these amazing steam tablets that are really expectorating and open up the lymph like crazy. And you just plop, plop, and they actually do a little fizz, fizz. Seriously, you just put them in hot water, and then you just put your towel over your head and you do steam inhalations, and you do gua sha underneath the towel in the steam when everything's all liquefied and opened up. And that would be really good for like if you have cortisol trapped in there, if you have lymph that's stuck, if you have a little cavity bacteria, if the sinuses are a little low grade allergies and it's clogged up around the nose and down the neck, you might be getting a little bit of a sweet flavor. So those are the things I think of, and we know where to start. Steam tablets and a gua sha are very important. And I guess I'm trying to think of something else. I mean, I'm trying to give an emotional relation, like an energetic relation to that question. And I feel like something is sort of coming through. Dental and thyroid are throat chakra, and throat chakra is very related to truths and communications. And if you're getting sweet, that is a craving that will want false contentment. So I maybe would say, what is your truth or your communications to yourself around a certain level of contentment that you need? Okay, so it's good you're doing all these things for yourself and it looks like nothing specifically is going on, but maybe looking at the word contentment and telling yourself the truth about what's really going to help you with that. And what's going to make you really happy is basically the bottom line. Otherwise, you could be craving sweet because your body wants sweet, because sweet rasa is the ultimate nourishing. Good, healthy electrolyte salt, salty, healthy salt. We have to make sure we understand that. It's about hydration and cycling water, but sweet is about literally grounding, nourishing, coating, contentment. The nice, good, comfortable blanket that's the perfect temperature and the perfect weight for you and for the moment. So I would maybe say that's an emotional piece to like, why would you be maybe tasting sweet? Maybe you're looking for more sweetness or just need more sweetness. And usually those things just need to be looked at. You don't have to change everything. Everyone's like, oh, if I look at it, I'm gonna have to change everything. It's you could change a couple things. You could work on the change. You could, play out the change over, a little bit of time. So, you might as well look at it and kind of make it a goal and spring into that. So. I can't hear you, but I'm not sure if.
Oops.
There we go.
Here I am. Thank you. So our next question is from Maria. And Maria asks, I wonder if you have any suggestions for someone who has an extreme reaction to EMFs, supplements, cleanses, etc.
So I definitely work with clients who have this. And it runs in chemical sensitivity. Often it's a chemical sensitivity onset, and then it becomes a little bit more everything, becomes an acute reaction. And that could be, Wi-Fi, that could be electricity. Usually it's the gamut. And it can even be like people's energy, since we are electromagnetic, and we're radiant. And so sometimes even people's energy will just really get stuck in someone. So the first thing I like to establish with this person is not to try to take it away or think it's just going to go away, or there's going to be herbs that are going to, really make it change. Usually this person is vata depleted. I see it mostly with people who've gone too cold and have really cold stomach fire, and their blood pressure plummets down, low, cold. Fear gets locked in them, and then everything starts being very reactive and surface and peripheral from there. So it could be a trauma onset, but it might be like literally coldness. And I've seen it with people who've gotten really stripped out from a chemical situation, like a medication they had to take or chose to take, like in a really hardcore antibiotic kind of thing. And then I see it with heavy metals too. And there's something and that's why the detox is hard. So the detox part of this question happens because most people think detox, we're back to pooping is important, by the way, just want to say it. If we detox too deep, like people just detox their liver, they detox their lungs. Those are deep organs, so we need to be able to work on the peripheral and the worker bees and the primary plumbing before we're going to go down into, the undergrounds of our body and ask them to release. So if you're trying to get your liver to detox and your intestines are full, that liver is smart. It's the lead of the body. So it is like, I'm not relinquishing more on you. You're full already. And it will not release. And then it backlashes into the tissues and causes reactions and kind of autoimmune like flares. And I see a lot of this with autoimmune disorders, but not always. So those are a couple things I'm thinking of, is like the detox is because you're maybe going for a deep organ and you should really be thinking about your superficial organs. So the stomach, if I said you went cold, and if this is true to you, this is about your stomach fire because it's the first organ of the body. And the stomach is your small intestine health, and your small intestine health is your colon health. That's your primary plumbing. And please, let's not forget about the mouth, because it's the first place we put our emotions. We eat our emotions, but we also eat in this mouth. And so the health of the mouth is slow dripping and helping or not helping the stomach to the small intestine to the colon. So those have to be evacuated first so that you don't have extreme detox. And even those have to be done not in extreme ways. So this person should please do not do coffee enemas. Like this is the seaweed 3-cup holding. You got to soak your pan. And then everything sloughs off the side of the pan. And then you clean the pan. So you need that nice, unctuous, cooling, mending, mineralized, protein-rich, nourishing seaweed enema. Very important difference. So you just don't want to go too quick, too furious. This is going to work. This is my answer. I'm going to do it. That's just not, we don't heal that way. And that's kind of what I feel, for some reason. So I hope I'm giving good advice. Let's see what else. The other thing is, I find this is usually somebody who maybe I want to talk to about boundaries of suffering. So sometimes this person gets so lacking their stomach fire, they get so stripped of their flora. So this needs flora and this needs stomach fire. Cardamom essential oil, really smart here. Eating tons of ginger. I'm going to give you the safe ones, but you could look into HCl, hydrochloric acid, and see if you want to play with that or not. But I'm giving you some super safe. Asafoetida, cumin, ginger, and cardamom essential oil. And you could do the sacred 7 cardamom pods a day. I do have the most beautiful cardamom. I mean, it is wow. And I love that. It's just a beautiful, beautiful black, rich cardamom seed. So these are the things I think of for stomach fire that also roto-rooter through very gently, very effectively over a period of time. So sometimes people need to go slower and really let something work its way out through that plumbing. And then boundaries. So they may be so tired. I mean, I think about it. When I'm tired, I have no boundaries. I've had to learn to even say, like, hey, I can't book that right now. I'm too tired. They're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I will not make a good decision. I will make a bad decision on giving you whatever you want because I'm tired. And they're like, oh, and so I've learned to be like, please let me email you some dates when I look at my reality. And so these boundaries are there, but when I'm tired, I don't have any. And these people are usually exhausted. They also usually have insomnia and they're not getting enough sleep, and that sleep is everything to changing sensitivities. So nutmeg milk at night, beautiful nutmeg milk, a half a teaspoon of nutmeg in whatever milk you want. And wow, warm nutmeg milk is a game changer for helping sleep. And that's part of this picture. And then let's see, how would I got two great ways that I deal with boundaries, and I'll try to make this quick. There might be more questions, but two good ways. First off, I started saying this to students and it really works. So first off, I want us to remember that nobody else's suffering belongs to us. We have our own suffering. Everyone is responsible to change or to do or to live with whatever their suffering looks like. And those are all different aspects of suffering. And I can feel, I can be, I can be sympathetic. I can take action and help. I can do whatever I want, but it's not mine. And I've been saying this for years. And finally, one day I said to a student group, I was like, look, it's like stealing, like no stealing. Like, I do not steal. Do you steal? And everyone's all, no. And I'm like, yeah, we don't steal. You don't steal someone's suffering either. You got to let everything, whether it be the earth's suffering, whether it be a country's suffering, things that are actually really hard to hold this practice, or, pandemic time suffering. It's ongoing. We know it exists, but we must deal with our own. And this EMF kind of sensitivity, a sensitivity person, usually they have their own suffering going on. That is not easy to live with. It is not easy to have this problem. And it really makes it hard to like go anywhere. You can't go anywhere. Everywhere affects you. And so there's definitely got to be a little bit of I got to find safe places that do not affect me. I got to spend more time in those safe places. I need to heal in those safe places and get my tissues really moving, get my flora built up, get my stomach fire going. So stomach, probiotics, and lymph in a safe place, and try not to go out too much or try to reach out into that EMF world too much. Does it affect me? Zap. Yes, it does. Stay and just like you, and let that suffering be there. And you can still hold wow, I feel you. And I've got mine too. And I'm going to work on mine as a way of seeing if it allows you to work on yours. So there's some great things here. And the other thing is just like, are you holding traumas, in that fear and that lock-in? And we have to be willing to give those things back to the person, return to sender. You got to give those things back. And I wasn't very neutral there. So that's a big part of it. You have to do it neutrally. So if I want to give something back to somebody who did something horrible to me, I have to temple it. I have to kind of sacred and put it in my hand. And I need to make it this neutral object that does not belong to me. I am choosing not to identify with it. And it doesn't belong to me. It's something that happened to me. And it's going nowhere because it's history and it happened already. And I need to neutrally take that off my life shelf, and I need to hand it back to the person it belongs to. I'm not asking them to take it. I'm not saying, will you take this, please? I'm like, nope, there's not a question. There's no conversation, even energetically. This just belongs to you. And it doesn't belong to me, and I don't want to identify with it any longer. And so there's just some really beautiful sacred boundary relations. And I do notice these are the things. sleep, insomnia, and maybe trauma onset. And that could even be a flora got wiped out in your body trauma onset. Doesn't have to be emotional, could be physical trauma onset. And suffering relating to it, just taking it on a bit too much. So this is also where people go out with the new sprigs, in many, many, many cultures, and do, what I learned in Mexico, limpia, limpia. You make a bundle of herbs and you sweat yourself, and you take the bundle of herbs and you slap yourself and you smack yourself, and you respectfully pull off of you the things that are not serving you, and you disperse them into nothingness. So hopefully these are some practice and some really good physical remedies, because a lot of people have this and it is really, really uncomfortable. I can feel it when I'm with this client, how uncomfortable they feel in their own skin. So that's what I help them with, is to get into their body and what's under their skin, and how do they move it out, and how do they plump up that skin so that it's more buffered to all these like little waves moving through everywhere, because they ain't going nowhere. Those waves are going nowhere. We got meta going on now. I mean, like, they're going nowhere. So we have to figure out how to adapt.
Some powerful remedies there. Really great. Crystal just joined us. So hi to Crystal. And Crystal has a question that we'll be adding in as well. So our next question is from another person named Maria. Maria says, cellulite, what is it? Is this directly related to sluggish lymph? I have it all over. Yuck. I'm embarrassed to wear anything.
Well, I don't know anything about that. No. Just kidding. What I'm saying is so many people have it, including myself. So I actually know a lot about it. And I have changed mine a lot. So I do have some advice, because I have changed it. And I've changed it pretty drastically through the years, to be honest. And it's also tonified my tissues, because I lost a lot of weight in a very short amount of time when I was young, and I hadn't really found my kind of exercise. I hadn't found that part of myself. And so my tissue was really weak and soft and a little untonified, and I had to like gua sha it up. So I'm so sorry to go back to gua sha, but maybe a few of these people that are right here, like, could speak to, like, I could probably be a billionaire at this point if I just educated the gua sha for anti-aging and cellulite. So perhaps I'll just do that now. But it is one of the most amazing tools. And I'll tell you what cellulite is, don't worry. But I'm just excited because it's another thing that is just, you want to sculpt yourself into the you that you can be. That gua sha is amazing. And the other one I'm going to tell you, for like long stretches, like say it's the back of your legs or up your hip, foam roller or a rolling pin. Now I use a chapati roller. A chapati roller is like this really kind of thin, long rolling pin that's just a piece of wood, and that's what I use. You can go to many Indian markets, and you'll be able to find these little chapati rollers made of wood. I love those because I can just take that and put it behind my knee, and then I can just like really wring that cellulite out. You got to really get deep into the tissue and flush those little air and lumpies that are cellulite. And it's super great. So I'll tell you some oils. I'll tell you some things. And I am excited because I really do have something that you're going to kind of be amazed if you gave yourself a 10-day challenge with doing just the gua sha alone, maybe foam roller, start there. I think you'd be blown away at how much it would shift. And then it's an incentive program. It keeps me wanting to go, keep going back. So let's talk about what is cellulite. Cellulite is localized kapha blocking vata. Now, what I mean by that is because that's an advanced idea in Ayurveda, and usually it's like a body that's kind of, not doing, maybe not headed towards, a little bit more weakness. But it's this localized. So kapha, dams in the river, that's the kind of like thicker little pieces when you run your finger across it. That's all dams. Kapha, water and earth makes mud. So those are muddy and they've got to build up and they're not moving. And then when a river is not flowing, when you have a dam in the river and it's not flowing anymore, you're going to have flooding back of water and you're going to have dry air. You have no water on the other side of that river. And that's the little air pockets in between the little clumpies. Aren't I so making cellulite sound lovely? But it's the truth. There's like little air pockets and there's little lumpies, and then the air pockets are around those little glunky glunkers. And we all know about it. And so, yeah, you got to liquefy the glunky glunkers, which sometimes are lymph nodes. Sometimes it's just fatty deposits that are starting to coagulate and collect. And the way you liquefy is heat, sweat, cardio. And so that's you warming it up and getting blood flow on your side. That's how we liquefy. Butter in a pan. It's just a glob sitting there until you put some heat on it. So you got to warm it up and then you got to melt it down. My favorite melter is ginger grass. If you know how to use ginger essential oil, because it's a little tricky and it'll burn your skin if you don't dilute it, ginger works too. But you better know what you're doing. Ginger grass is much gentler. The other one is Litsea cubeba, which is Chinese lemongrass. I have both of these. They're really brilliant, but they're dispersing and they open it up. My other favorite is grapefruit and cypress together. Red cypress, regular cypress, not blue cypress. You need heat, but you need like safe heat. These aren't going to overheat you, but they're going to melt and heat and break up fat. Rosemary is another brilliant one. And a lot of you might just have that sitting around, more common. And you can also use fresh rosemary leaves. You can put a bunch of leaves in a little pouch and you can pound it until you smell the oils. And then you use that little pouch and you pound out and you liquefy and you break up. This is what I'm doing down there. You could just even use your fist. And you just like open it up when it's after it's warm. And then you put your essential oils on there and you work it in again. And then there's my gua shas right over there. I pick up my gua sha and I'm just like, yeah. And then I start, oh, yeah, that glunky glunker really has some pain in it. Don't go too deep. Go right to the productive pain. All of a sudden, it's going to start melting and softening. And you're going to see there's a little glunky over to the side. You're like, let me soften that too. And it starts melting and the pain starts going away. And you're like, oh, and it feels so good because you just opened up a dam in one of your rivers. And now all your fluids are running through there beautifully in the river. And your bloodstream is on your side because you created cardio. Warmth, your lymph and your blood move simultaneously. The whole area turns pink, which is blood glow, depending on what color your skin is. We're looking for that blood glow that happens with cardio. Everybody gets that. And so you're waiting for that and the warmth to touch. And then you go in with the gua sha even deeper, or you go in with that chapati roller or, foam roller. And you just start squishing it and dispersing the fluid you opened up and filling in all those little air pockets in between. And you literally smooth that area out. I love the way I just explained that. I'm so sorry. Sometimes I hear things myself and I'm like, yeah, but I know how much that's changed my life and how much I feel in charge of my body. I have my own body image issues just like anybody else. I don't love my body. I love myself, but it's a challenge. But you got to be willing to get in there, touch it, love it, connect to it, even the parts you don't dig on. And man, when you start changing it, you're like, what else can I sculpt? Where else can I go? And so it could be overwhelming. I heard this person said, I have it all over my body. Did I not hear that? I have it everywhere or something like that. It wasn't like just like my thighs, you know? And so I just want to also like one area at a time. So you might want to do like, I kind of have a little routine. I do like 15, 20 minutes a day. I do a full body once a week, gua sha, but I do 15, 20 minutes a day. And I'm usually like, what part did I pick for the week? You know, like right now I'm on like my hips, my pelvis, my hips, and my sacrum and my butt. So that's what I'm working on for the whole week. And then I'll switch to a new part for 2 weeks, a week, and then another week, you know? So you may want to do that because then you get the results. Otherwise, you're like, oh, I don't know. Oh, let me try over here. Down here. I don't know. And you're not going to really see like, so choose one part at a time. And where do you get in 3, 4, 6 months? Some people come in, I haven't seen them in like 3 months, and I'm just like, what? And they're like, I did it. I am doing it. And I'm like, I can tell. Like it can be miraculously. I love that I get to experience that. Those miraculous changes that people have when they just really invest a little bit of that time and focus.
That's fantastic. Can't beat a gua sha. It's an amazing tool.
Gotta mention salt scrub too. Warming salt scrub is the one that's really for cellulite. The warming that I make is designed specifically for that blood flow in the tissue.
Great. And we've got more people who have joined in, and I'm hoping we're going to get to everybody's question. Kelly Crandall is here and says hi.
Hi. Oh my gosh, what? Flash from the past. That is so wonderful. Oh.
So we're going to get to Noah's question here from the top of the live stream. Noah says, thank you for holding this space. Can you talk about what a diet or meals should look like in the spring?
Okay. So the one thing about spring is to remember we're coming out of winter. Okay, so we always want to defrost. And so we have to think warm. And you want to think a little bit more warm in the beginning of spring, which gets that lymph and blood flushing, which then is going to help with the sweating, you know, of the muscle. And you're going to go into a really gentle spring detox from that. So, you know, you're going to want to think warmer. This is a great time of year for like a lot of cinnamon, cardamom, star anise, nutmeg. And the reason I like those is because they're about digestive churning and fire. They're not just about like heating you up, you know, they're not acidic. They're supporters. They're enzymatic blood builders. So again, the cardamom, the cinnamon, the nutmeg, you know, ginger, star anise, really brilliant one. If you don't work with that one, you can even powder it when you get the stars. You can powder it down and add it like a spice to food. And you're going to be like, what an amazing marinade component. But these are things that you would really want to think of. And then I said marinade, and it really does make sense because you want to think about fermentation for building up your probiotics. You just came out of winter immunity. So you want to really make sure, you know, some people would go on like a probiotic pill for the next 3 months just to like, boom, knock it in. But if you feel like you got through the winter well and you're not having immunity issues, I like to stick with food whenever possible. And you might want to think about like grating a whole bunch of ginger in your kraut, you know, or chop up a whole bunch of basil or rosemary and put that in your kraut and let it sit for a week. I like to buy plain krauts and then add my stuff to it and let it sit a little minute. And then it's a medicated kraut probiotic. Yeah. So I would think about that. Cinnamon kraut is really tasty on lots of things more than you would think. And that's a great one for this time of year. And I'm always thinking protein veggies, since this is a food question. So that's the spice part of the question. But I'm really thinking protein veggies. And this is, things, oils and mucus are the two things that coagulated when they got too cold in the winter. So this is the cut through the grease time of year. And it's the time when we would give a little like breathing. We need a little breathing room for the gallbladder. So we needed more fats with heat and cooked food in the winter. Now it's time to stay with your essential fatty acids. So raw seed oils and raw seed butters, but you would start looking at saturated fats, whether that be dairy or the butter you might have really been enjoying, or whether it's, meat. This is the time of year where it's a little bit more vegetarian, or fish. If you are not vegetarian, maybe stick with fish a little bit more, or bone broth versus flesh, because that's harder to break down. But yeah, we want to minimize our saturated fat. I don't want you to take it out of your diet. You won't be able to think. You won't be able to get things done. So we need it, but you might do better with like less coconut oil than you maybe give yourself the liberty for. Or if you do put half and half in your, milk, or ghee in your, in your coffee or tea, or you use ghee, those would be things that I'm not doing right now. So I'm not doing my saturated fat. I'm doing way more salad, but I'm doing a lot of wild greens, the new fresh wild greens. Like I have beautiful wild, one of the most softest, it's a volunteer, one of the most softest dandelions I've ever had in my yard. But I'm like massaging the dandelion since it's a little rough, like it's a kale. And I massage a nice, good, marinade into it, which is, salad dressing, apple cider vinegar, ume plum. Ooh, my draksha. That's been the biggie right now. So draksha is where you have apple cider vinegar and you put in a whole container of umeboshi plum paste. And then you make it a little bit salty, and, maybe a tablespoon in that 32 ounce of apple cider vinegar with the 9-ounce plum. And you let that sit for a couple weeks, and it makes the most phenomenal salad dressing that you can add with tahini, and makes like this tart, creamy marinade dressing sauce. You can go anywhere with it. It's brilliant. And it's very, very spring forward, which is churning, activating, breaking up the grease, breaking up the mucus if you have any. And you just have to wonder how dry you are to really cleanse right now. So that's the only thing about spring. Is I had someone the other day and I was kind of like, please don't cleanse. Your intestines are fine. And I don't care if it's spring. Please don't cleanse. You're way too dry. You've had an extremely stressful, hard winter. You're depleted. And I just really had to be like, nourishment will flush you out too. So the more depleted you are right now, this isn't really even, this is just traditional, how do I get through spring? And it's clean time. But you could also kind of do the cleansing with a whole bunch of nourishing. Keep those seed oils, a lot of olive oil. It's really light and astringent for spring. The tahini is astringent, but it's nice and rich. So you might need to add nourishment accordingly and trust that that's still flushing you and supporting you. But yeah, I think of protein veggies, a lot of hummus, a lot of white beans, softer beans, easy to digest, with tons and tons of vegetables. And I wouldn't start fruit until fruit is actually here. And then fruit would become part of this, or then you might turn it into I'm ready for deeper cleanse. And then you become a fruitarian for just a little while. And you literally rev up the enzymes and flush out the gallbladder and get the liver excreting. That's the beauty of enzymatic multi-seeded fruits. So that'd be later spring. Maybe we should talk about multi-seeded fruits next month.
Yeah, that would be
deeper cleanse.
That's a good one. All right, moving on to our question from Heather. Heather asks, Is there a way to tell if your psoas is tight?
Okay, so first thing we do to know if your psoas is tight is maybe take a moment to see how much do you hike up your shoulders and clench your jaw. Because when we suck in our gut, our armpits tighten up, our shoulders go up, and we kind of lock in our jaw. So sometimes I'll have someone look at their upper, tighten up and talk from this, really tight place to know if they're really breathing in their psoas or holding their psoas. So that's the one thing, because sometimes the core holding gets so familiar. It's why we're even having this question. It gets so familiar, you don't even know. So I would think about hiking up. And then the other one is, I would now put your hands on your abdomen around your belly button and just kind of do a full exhale and land down at your root chakra. So exhale all the way down, 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 down to your root. Wait, you will breathe until the moment you die, which means you don't have to do anything. No controlling, nothing necessary. And then expand in your abdomen out to your hand. Pushing your hand away, extending out into the world, and then exhale, relaxing all the way back down to the root. So we expand to meet the world every inhale, and we come back to self and back down to the root base to breathe again on our exhale. So if you are not able to expand naturally and extend into the world, then we know that psoas is in a hold and it's not letting you expand. It's in contract, stuck in contract. So another great way to do this is just to lay down, put something really heavy on your abdomen, and then just go back down to that ground zero, and then move that book or rock on your abdomen, and you have to expand out. The ribs go back, the diaphragm goes out, the shoulders go out, the ears go out, but they don't go up, they go out, and all the way to the top of your head out. And then when we exhale, we go down, down, soft, 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 soft. Some people will be able to, I can make myself expand. So you might even have to make yourself do it. You might have to fake it till you make it. There are a few times when that happens because you have to train. You'd be in training. So some people might do this and be like, oh my God, I can't even make my belly move with my breath. Well, then you're going to have to make your belly move and make it relax until all of a sudden you're like, wait, I can just do this. I can just open and I can just close. But these are the things I do, to help people. And a lot of times when your psoas is locked in, you might also lock your knees in a lot. So, yeah.
That's an important one for sure.
Sure is. Wow, is it important?
Yep. All right.
Room for more?
Our next question comes from Crystal, and she asks what your recommendations are for healing scleroderma.
Scleroderma. I might even have to do a little look that up and make sure I am remembering correctly, just because I have a wondering for a moment. So I'm not afraid to make sure I'm totally spot on. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Okay, good. I am on track. Okay. So this is, I wanted to make sure this is a autoimmune disorder, and it does this thickening of skin, and it changes the texture and even sometimes the coloring of someone's skin. A lot of people get it on their hands and their palms. That's where I've seen it with clients a fair amount. I've also seen it a lot on people's shins and around, the lower part of your arm. And these are both things like, I don't know if you all know this, but your elbows and your knees are connected to your adrenals, as far as your nervous system, and your kidney meridian runs down through there in your leg. So I just think it's an important thing to be considering that these are kind of kidney adrenal related areas. And I always think of when it's on hands, because, another question here would be, where is it? Tells you a lot about what meridian is affected. It's the conversation, the nerves talking to your organs. Or we can look at it in chakra relation parts of the body. So hands are always looked as the things that you're extending to out in the world. And you might be overextending. You might be giving too much of yourself, or you might be doing that, like merging with suffering too much and then feeling bad for what you feel or connect to. So we always think about that, and I see it a lot with people who are doing brilliant work, like, advocacy and justice for all. And I'm kind of like, I don't want you to stop working. I love what you do. It is extremely important. But who are your allies, and making sure there's not a setup for like, that means you do everything yourself, or you're a one person show. It's like, those are things that are very much like needs a team. So sometimes I see it as like overdoing all you have to do it all kind of thing. So these are some of the emotional relations behind it, but it is an autoimmune disorder. All autoimmune disorders attack a certain part of the body. It starts kind of, just like finding a place that it beelines to, and it starts really shifting it. And this one happens to be the dermis and epidermis layer of your skin. So not an easy one to give a remedy in this place, in this kind of arena. Really hard. I mean, autoimmune, oh my gosh, Crystal, lymph. We're back to lymph, but you already know about lymph. But, just for everybody else, like, lymph is everything to the immune system, because it is the immune system. It's the channel within which your immune system does its function, your lymph river, your channel, your system. So got to open the floodgates. Let's just say it's on the hands, because we got to pick an area for me to explain things. Not only do I want to think about that emotional picture, but you want to think about upstream, because we're still talking about a river. So if this is attacking, usually it means that lymph isn't able to freely move around in this region, or even dump itself and remedy the issue, because our lymph knows how to remedy things. That's what it does all day long. Searches for things that are not serving you, foreign invaders or injury, and is helping you to remedy it and take care of it, digest it. So if it's on the hands, for instance, or the elbows, I'm going to need to open up the elbows and the lymph in the socket of in your joints, but armpit, and is the drain open, and is the tissue down in the chest or the breast area, is it all open? Because we have tons of lymph in through here, and it has to be wide open for that immune system not to, for lack of better words, freak out. Because that's really what happens with autoimmune, is the lymph is like, I'm meant to flow, I'm a river. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't get through, there's a dam, it's gravelly, I'm liquid, there's nothing left, I'm out of juice. And then it stresses out. So dry river, makes for inflammation, flare. And then, too much dams in the river make for fire, pressurizing and pushing back. And when it's pressurized here, it's going to push back to here. If it's pressurized here, it's going to push back to here. So you got to think of the whole region within where this person is affected. I have seen it on people's neck before too. And then we're back to like all the sinuses and the neck, and remembering to check the occiput, the whole back of the neck. But usually there's armpits involved in this picture too. So I know lymph, but I think that gives another little like, oh, you got to look upstream and open up the floodgates. And then I do know this to be a very dry, rough skin. So I would also be like, okay, that tells us that nourishment is essential. And that would be by, putting body butter on there or a really rich salve, or shea butter. And then you would want to be thinking about like, how am I going to nourish internally also? But I would not forget about the trihydration, electrolytes, omega oils, and probiotics, because gotta cool down the fire. Autoimmune, fire, inflammatory response. You got to cool down the inflammation, and you got to nourish that tissue that is getting dry and thick and really hard. And those would be the foundations in this relation. I mean, I can think of a few essential oils that would probably be very, very effective here. One would be rose geranium. The other one would be carrot seed, wild carrot seed. And the other one would be heliochrysum. Those are 3 go-to essential oils for me, and those can even be paired together. 2 mils heliochrysum. Yep, 2 mils heliochrysum, 4 mils carrot seed, 4 mils rose geranium would make a beautiful 10 mil formula, 8 drops twice a day. But I can tell you across the board, those would be my favorite anti-inflammatory, skin mending, because that's what this needs. You're going to, other than the lymph moving, it's going to need that skin mending with anti-inflammatories to stop that energy directed to the skin. But I'm going to give one more thing to this. Something got under this person's skin. So, and it's really really affected them and flared them up. So that is an important piece of this too.
That's amazing. Well, we have a couple more questions. Do you have a client that is waiting on you, or do you have time for 2 more?
Not right in this. I can do a few more questions.
Okay, yeah. We'll do these 2.
Fun. Overtime.
Right. The next one comes from Ms. Daskar, who is here with us. And that question is, let's see. Can you please recommend some ways, and this is speaking to what you were just talking about, some ways to moisturize from the inside? And Ms. Daskar also says it's such a lovely breath of fresh air to listen to you again.
Oh. Okay, so how to nourish on the inside?
Moisturize from the inside.
Moisturize. Okay, well, nourish and moisturize, I think, are very similar. But the difference is moisturize the inside kind of is like, how do you, when I think of moisturizing the body, I think of like the thing that's going to like put the cream on the insides of your body and like, slowly, unctuously seep into your tissues. But it's like almost like a little buffer coating, because moisturizer also protects our skin, by making a buffer. So that's what I'm hearing in this question. I could just be like, that's nourishment. Let's talk about the trihydration. One of those trines is extremely important. Here's another reason for probiotics, because probiotics are literally the moisturizer of your GI tract. Your immune system lives in that lining called mucin. No wonder they called it flora. Who wants to take mucin? Nobody wants to take mucus, but it is a mucin. It's a mucus lining that starts in your mouth and with the enzyme of amylase in your mouth. That amylase is super nourishing in your mouth. And then it starts coating everything all the way through that football field length of your plumbing. And then you have hydrochloric acid to help you break down food when needed, your warming agent. And then you have pepsin, your cooling agent. And then you also have your immunity and all your strains of healthy bacteria, microbiome that live in that mucin lining. So we must have that inner moisturizer that builds our flora and fauna to really be able to have all of our chemistry come and get used in the compost pile of your gut, your stomach, used on demand. Oh, it needs a little cooling agent. Oh, it needs a little alkaline cooling, needs a little acidic heating, needs a little liquid. And that's how we compost our food. So that's one thing. If you feel like you have great flora, what would be the next thing? Well, composting your food appropriately turns your food to liquid. And that liquid breaks down fats into essential fatty acids. It turns carbohydrates into quick energy. We call them carbohydrates. Let's not forget the word hydrates is in there. Carbohydrates. Yep. So they're moisturizing. And it breaks down your proteins to power. So you have fat, fuel, protein, power, and carbohydrates. Very important pieces of how we actually stay lubricated inside our body is eating food and turning it to liquid and making sure that food is not like burning acid through our flora, we do all kinds of things that maybe do that. What if you go and have some alcohol? What if you drink regularly? What if you have to take a medication every day? These are things that very much need us to constantly rebuild that flora. Some people work in chemistry or chemicals, or they work in industry. And all of those things are very hard on that flora. You might have to keep it going in. But we have to also keep the food very nourished. So something that is a true moisturizer in food would be things like oats and healthy grains like quinoa, or a little bit of rice sometimes, or buckwheat noodles. These are things that literally are going to nourish and rebalance. And then that's also what we get from melons and squashes and root vegetables. They're also nourishing and moisturizing. And then there's all the fats. There's healthy omega fats, a whole nother, every moisturizer has some kind of fat in it. We just make them digestible for the skin. So then it's going to be, what are the digestible fats for the body? Omegas, essential fatty acids. So there would be that too, which is another whole way we stay lubricated. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what a great thing going into a drier season with all this elevated heat.
That's right.
Okay. So our last question comes from Kelly Crandall. Kelly says that she misses you so much and wondering if you know off the top of your head how blue chamomile essential oil influences the doshas. Kelly also wanted to add that she could say from personal experience that doing gua sha work can transform cellulite, weight, pain, and personal sculpting power. So there's an endorsement right there.
Oh my gosh, Kelly, I just have a feeling you're like another human than who I knew. I just have this really great feeling. Oh my gosh, we should probably Zoom someday if you're not local. I don't even know where you're at, but we should probably Zoom or something someday and just like, I would love to just get a look at you. So, I love you. So let's see. The question is blue chamomile for the doshas. So blue chamomile, first off, blue gives itself away with the word cooling, because we know blue is cooling. But we also know that in chemistry, because any essential oil that can turn blue yarrow, blue chamomile, blue cypress, blue tansy, these are things that have a chemistry called sesquiterpene. We have two primary chemical families, terpenes, sesquiterpenes. And sesquiterpenes have then, these two groups have smaller constituents. And the constituent that makes an essential oil blue is called azulene. And often you'll see products that say azulene, chamomile azulene is probably one of the most well-known, and it was the very first essential oil that ever turned blue in a distillation process. Blue chamomile. So that first off is just really pretty powerful, old medicine used in Eastern Europe. So now let's look at what this is. So this is a blue, cooling, anti-inflammatory, brilliant anti-inflammatory, has some antihistamine functions. I often give people lavender as an antihistamine because it's much cheaper and easier to get. But blue chamomile is where I started studying antihistamines and allergies with this group of sesquiterpenes, and they work brilliant. So you would only need like 2 drops of blue chamomile twice a day. I mean, it's strong and just gorgeous in cobalt blue. So we know since it's cold, it is going to be pitta minus, meaning it lowers pitta fire. It's an anti-inflammatory, like pitta 101, they need anti-inflammatories. So we have pitta minus. We know vata runs dry and cold, and this is a very cold plant. It's so cold, it's cobalt blue. And so this makes it vata plus. Plus chamomile, it's a little drying. And that's another reason why it's potent, but you don't want to use too much or you will dry out and you will get kind of cold. So it would be vata plus, not the best one for vata, but you could add things to chamomile and it would work still because it's calming for the nerves. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I want the calming, and maybe they have some pitta that needs to, chill out, but maybe they're vata dry. So then I'll, think about like, okay, let me do palmarosa. I'll do 2 mils chamomile with 8 mils palmarosa, and I'll, make that blend a little cheaper. And I'll also, make sure that I don't overdose them with the cam. So that means kapha. Chamomile does really good because it's cleansing and it's flushing and it's lymph and blood cleansing. So I would give it a kapha minus. And then there's only one little hint or note to self, note to Kelly, is that if that kapha is cool, if it's gotten too low metabolism, or if it's gotten too, that kapha person has gotten too low blood pressure or poor circulation or weak heart, I may really add this with, a little bit of, I think of something a little bit warmer, like, and I still get that function. I'm trying to think of what, Tulsi. So maybe then I would do 8 Tulsi and I would do 2 chamomile and I would just warm that up in a little blood circulatory for the kapha cool. If it's just kapha excess and you're just wanting to kind of get that person flushing, this is a great plant. So that makes this vata plus pitta kapha minus. Yeah, that's a fun one. Yeah.
That's great. What a full time of amazing information we've had today, and all the really great folks who stopped by to say hi. I'm so glad to see so many folks here. And please do come back in 2 weeks. DeAnna will be here again at 9 a.m. Pacific. You can also catch the notes of all of the items that DeAnna mentioned. We'll be adding those in and put on notifications if you're following us on YouTube, and you'll get notified when she comes on. Please make sure that you visit our website. There are some great deals happening right now. And follow us on Instagram and on Facebook as well to check out all the upcoming things, and make sure that you are saving your calendar dates for later this fall for Portugal.
Oh, I'm so excited. I hope everybody can go with me. It would be so much fun. But yes, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being on this journey with me for so long. And it's just really powerful, to have such a longevity. I mean, Kelly and I go way back, and it's just really hitting me like, wow, I have a, client coming today that I've known probably 20 years, it's just really powerful to be in such a committed community that have a like-mindedness, and I know we're all spreading the word, and I'm just so thankful for that. So, adios.